All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to a jubilant episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show. We are going to try our best to stay lukewarm, as we always do, because we are, as always, your hosts, Alex Baquero and Chris Hothead Condit, your American villain voices, and at least one of us will be serving up lukewarm takes today. As per usual, socials, all the places where you can go check us out, go do so, get involved, slide tackle into those DMs. And that's kind of it for the intro, honestly. Chris, how are you doing today? We got things to do, we got places to be, and we've got a game to talk about. So I hope you don't go into a long monologue about how Thanksgiving was and all that kind of stuff.
Thanksgiving.
Halloween. I'm so far ahead. Oh God.
We already did Halloween. That happened. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we're good. It's cold, freezing down. And what is this? But other than that, I'm doing great. Great result on Sunday, and really a lot of positive things to talk about. A few things that we need to, look at. But I think on the whole, you can't be upset with the way things went over the weekend. How about you, Alex? How are you?
Clearly not in front of a calendar or a
flustered
clock or any of the things. Yeah, no, I'm all over the place. Got back late last night. Air traffic control delay. I was a victim from my friend's wedding. Shout out to Douglas White Sauce Fisher. Congratulations, happy nuptials. And this Friday I will be headed across the pond to London for work. Of course, when we're on an international break. So I will not be up to Birmingham to see the Villa. But if any of our lovely, lovely UK listeners are around London, want to grab a pint, let me know. I will happily tackle into our DMs and let me know. I will happily put myself in potential kidnappers' way for a free beer.
Jesus, man. I don't think.
Listen, we've got doting, adoring fans, man, and they might want a piece of this.
I doubt that. I mean, the first part is true. The second part, not so much. No offense. Some offense. Offense.
Listen, man, I know what I bring to the table. That's all I can say. And you know what? Villa brought a ton to the table on Sunday morning. So let's dive right into that, Chris. We might be flustered, but we don't miss on the transitions. So let's talk about the lineup first. No real changes from what we've seen in recent weeks in the league. Not so much in Europe, obviously heavily rotated from Europe. But praise the Lord, Emi Buendia was back in the starting lineup.
I was actually a little bit surprised by that, only because he'd played about 30 minutes in the game before, coming off of injury. But I was happy to see it and happy to see him play well. Because he's had such a good season so far, and giving you again all the credit in the world for that, because you said you thought he was going to have a big year, and I agreed with you, but you were on the Emi Buendia train pretty early here this season, and so that seeing him out there made me a little more optimistic, because if Emery felt like Buendia was ready to go, I trust that Emery's making that decision in the player's best interest as well as the club's. So I was happy to see him out there. Otherwise, it was exactly what you would have thought for this game. And I don't think, even with Watkins' struggles, I don't think you're going to see him in the league going to the bench, because you really don't have a better out-and-out option at striker. So we'll talk more about that later. But the lineup I expected, and really happy to see Buendia back in.
So I'm going to disagree with you slightly a little bit in that this is the lineup that you would expect playing against Bournemouth. It might be the lineup that you would expect from Unai Emery, because as we've discussed in recent podcasts, Unai Emery this year appears loath to change anything, come hell or high water. But you look at the way that Man City eviscerated Bournemouth just a week ago with their ultra high, super naive line that Erling Haaland was just able to run in behind over and over and over again. And you look at what Villa hasn't been able to do this year. It has been break down a low block, right? So if I'm Villa, not Unai Emery, but if I'm Villa going into this game, I see the defense that Bournemouth is trying to run, and I bring a few more of my horses in. So McGinn might move into the Onana spot. Onana might come out, and I might be starting Mullin, Sancho, Gasson, people like that who can run in behind with Ollie Watkins to create some stuff. Now, ultimately, wasn't necessary, right? We got through anyway. But I would just say going into the game based on how Bournemouth was coming into it, that's probably more what I would have expected. That being said, let's talk about how this played out. And I will say for the first 30 minutes, there wasn't a ton to speak about. Bournemouth came in still playing that incredibly high line that got torn to shreds last week. Villa certainly were trying to get in behind, play Ollie through the channels, and he was, as per usual, a willing runner, but didn't necessarily carve out a ton of opportunities. And I think this was because, once again, Villa looked incredibly narrow as they tried to play through the lines. How did you kind of take those first 30 minutes, Chris?
I don't think there was a whole lot in the first 30. I think that one player that we've talked about a lot previously that is the big difference in not being out there, especially against a line like Bournemouth was running, is Yuri Tielemans. And so he came in later, but having him not out there to make the line breaking passes that he's so good at, I think his vision and ability to pick up a pass is missing. And you're right. Once again, the shape felt a little bit narrow. I thought there were a few opportunities, maybe half chances, if you even want to call them that. But the first 30 minutes seemed to be very much a feeling out period for both Villa and Bournemouth.
Yeah, and so, the game kind of turned on two. Well, they weren't fairly similar penalties to give away, but in similar areas of the pitch, right? So loose pass by Onana ultimately leads to Kamara collecting a yellow. Pretty damn close to giving up a penalty right there on the top of the box. I mean, by maybe half a pace later, and that would have been a penalty for Bournemouth, not their only one of the day. They obviously fire it right over. Almost immediately afterwards, Matty Cash long ball to Emi Buendia. He gets trucked in the back by the Bournemouth right back, who had a horror day. And he ultimately steps up, and beautiful technique to get that up and down from 21 yards out.
I mean, he had the Premier League goal of the month for October, and he might have just gotten it for November, because that was using the outside of his foot like that to knuckleball it into the upper corner. I mean, it's not often that you see a goalkeeper not even move on a free kick, and it was flat-footed. It was a spectacular taken free kick, and Emi Buendia really, really looks like he's having, like I said, or primed to have a great season this year. So that really changed the tenor of the game, if you ask me, because then Villa, you kind of see them grow in confidence. Bournemouth have to fight back. So it's not that Bournemouth were without opportunities throughout the rest of the game, because they certainly were. But from that moment on, you could feel the Villa squad as a whole, really, but especially, I think, Morgan Rogers, Emi Buendia, and to an extent, Amadou Onana really start playing with a lot more confidence and being a little bit more freewheeling in the way they move, especially for me, Morgan Rogers.
Yeah, so before we get to Morgan Rogers, because what a move by him. I talked about the Bournemouth right back having a horror day. What a move by Morgan Rogers on the left wing to beat him, to set up Onana for the second goal. But before we get to that beautiful strike, let's talk about the fact that it seems like the entire team is trying to set Ollie Watkins up for a goal, and he just still cannot convert.
I noticed it too. The big one for me was the Pau Torres header it probably should have just been put on frame and scored, but he tried to head it to Ollie for a tap in, and I forget which Bournemouth defender just got half a foot.
I think it was Senesi, but I could be wrong about that.
Just got a little bit of a boot to it to knock it off course. And I would like to see Pau be a little selfish there and just take the goal, because that would have been two. But yeah, everybody seemed to be trying to set up Ollie Watkins to score, and Watkins still just can't seem to find the back of the net. So that stretch continues. He's won in his last 16 now, I think, all comps. So not a great record at the moment.
Yeah. So I guess a couple things on that front. First off, for Pau, the ball was floated in fairly softly. I think if he goes for goal with his head, probably can't get enough power on it to beat Petrovic, who kind of sees it the whole way. So he would probably need to do like a side foot volley or something to catch it, I think, to beat the goalie. But maybe I'm being a little overly critical there. Couple minutes later, there was that beautiful free kick by John McGinn into the box. There was the confusion. Ollie Watkins kind of gets the half scissor, half bicycle kick on it, which goes right at Petrovic's outstretched hand. And so, I want to talk about two things here, Chris, because I think two things can be true. On the one hand, I think that this narrative that Ollie Watkins is not getting chances is a bit overblown. And I've said this for a couple weeks now. When you look at what is defined as a chance on most major stat aggregation sources, Opta, FBref, etc., a chance is an actual attempt on goal. So like a chances created is a pass that leads to a shot on goal. So I think Ollie Watkins' chance statistics, if you want to look at like the actual statistical metric, is low because Ollie Watkins is not shooting. And we'll talk about like in the second half, he had that clear run at goal where he could have popped one from, again, about 20 yards, middle of the shot. Didn't take it, wound up dribbling into the corner, ultimately led to a corner. And I think that was Ross Barkley's goal that ultimately got it. But like, I want to see Ollie be selfish and shoot in that instance. That doesn't go down as a chance, even though I think optically, if we're thinking about it qualitatively, that is a chance. So I still think Ollie Watkins has got 2 to 3 chances a game that he just ultimately hasn't pulled the trigger on. And that's what I'm more concerned about than him not finishing the chances, is the fact that it seems like he has lost the confidence to take the chances.
Yeah.
That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, which I think is equally true, is that we cannot bench Ollie Watkins. I don't care that he scored a deflected goal in this game and ultimately took his opportunity like twice more to ultimately get some shot offs in Daniel Mallon. He is not a center forward. We don't have another number 9, particularly one that can do what Ollie Watkins does in running the channels, holding the ball up, all that kind of stuff. So I think for me, and I don't know if you agree or not, I think that the conversation around Ollie Watkins right now lacks a ton of nuance, in that he either needs to be benched or he's amazing and everyone needs to like give him a break. I think he's been playing pretty damn bad, but also he doesn't need to be benched because like he's doing enough and there's no one else that we can really put in there.
So I think you're probably right. And I think there are a few things here that I want to talk about based off of what you talked about. You said a lot of big words for a dumb Midwesterner there, so I have to catch up. Ollie, like, first of all, he's never been a great shooter from distance. And as much as I want to see him pull the trigger from out there, because I have been saying for 3 years that we need to stop trying to pass the ball into the net so much and just take long shots. And look at what's happening, by the way, though. Like, we're scoring on a lot of these long range shots, in part because, like we always say, you put the ball in front of the net and good things happen. So he's not a great shooter from distance, but I wouldn't mind seeing him have a go every now and then. He's gotten some opportunities, either 1v1 or where he can get a break and get a little bit of distance between him and the defender and take a shot, and he hasn't. And it usually ends up with him going to the corner, to the byline, like you said. The second thing, I think you're absolutely right, and I mentioned it earlier. he has to stay on as a starter because we don't have another out and out number 9. And I also I do want to say that I thought that in the game against Bournemouth specifically, the one we're talking about tonight, his hold-up play was actually very good. He played his hold-up play. I think I'd have to think back, but I think it may have been his best game of the season in terms of his ability to receive the ball and hold up and maintain possession and not lose it inside of 3 to 5 dribbles. So I think that is a positive, and hopefully that can lead to more opportunities for him down the line to actually get the ball in the back of the net. The good news is that we got goals elsewhere in this game, so that's a positive. But like we said in the last podcast, you have to get goals from your striker. It doesn't matter who you are. If you want to be successful in the Premier League or in any major soccer competition, you have to get goals from your number 9. It's not going to come from the field as much as it should come from Ollie Watkins.
I mean, let's put it this way. We make fun of him how much, Nicholas Jackson, and I think he still probably got 8 to 12 goals last season, right? He was one of the most maligned, mocked strikers in the league. So you're right. Like, even the worst will chip in somewhere near double digits over the course of the season for teams at the top end of the table. I will clarify.
Right.
All right, Chris. Not a ton to say about it other than what a move by Morgan Rogers and what a laser by Amadou Onana to the bottom left corner.
Incredible goal. And the confidence to shoot, I think it was from about 25 yards, if my memory serves.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah. But I think I saw a tweet earlier today where you can hear the entire crowd at Villa Park when Onana receives the ball from Rogers. The entire crowd goes, shoot, and he does. And there's very little more satisfying than that, right? Than the entire stadium yelling, shoot, the player obliging and just putting a rocket in the bottom corner. It was a great move and play by Morgan Rogers to set up the chance, and a well-taken opportunity by Onana to get a fantastic and much needed goal, because we always talk about the fact that Villa are prone to giving up big chances. So you always feel much better with more goals in your back pocket. And that was a much needed and very important goal. And I think, again, I hope it keeps the confidence of those players going where they feel comfortable if they've got space to shoot, to take the shot, because we've seen it now on several occasions this season. Guys are given room, so they just take the shot and it ends up in the back of the net.
Nothing else to say about it, so let's move on. Chris, in the second half, now we can dive into a little bit more of our nerdy tactics talk. Bournemouth finally got a foothold in the game, and you might have noticed something different. For me, again, it kind of comes back to that narrowness of Villa's play. So there was some time, I want to say in like the 46th, 48th minute, where you literally could see all 20 players, all 20 outfield players in about a 20 by 20 box around midfield. And it was shocking. And what I think that did was, Bournemouth obviously wants to keep the high line, and the high line is because they want to press relentlessly. Now, in the first half, their press was fairly sloppy. They weren't necessarily forcing Villa into danger areas. They were missing tackles, and Villa were fairly easily able to play through it. We've seen Villa do this to much better pressing teams in Man City just a couple games ago. But in the second half, their press was much more coordinated. Villa obviously didn't spread the field out to make them need to run much further. And so they were just getting turnover after turnover after turnover. It felt like Villa couldn't get the ball out, and, had to rely on some good saves by Emi Martinez, some last minute blocks. And that's seeming to become a hallmark of like the first 10 minutes of every second half that Villa plays. It seems like we're just on block alert, like we're, I don't know, Victor Wembanyama or something, trying to deny everybody getting into our box.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would take away that's a positive out of this is Emi Martinez probably played his best game of the season on
Agreed.
Sunday. So that's a good thing. And it's nice to see him back there playing with confidence, because his week and previous couple of months, to be honest with you, haven't been great. He's not been in great form, and he lost his vice captaincy. He's not on the Argentine national team in this call up. So, his confidence could have been shaken, but he played absolutely fantastically.
You know who? Can I interrupt you real quick to say,
Yeah,
who is on the latest Argentina national team?
Emi Buendia is.
The
Yeah.
man who was responsible for whatever few forays we got out of our half in those first 20 minutes of the second half. One Emiliano Buendia.
Yeah, Emi
Congratulations.
Buendia got the call. Well deserved, because, like we said, he's had such a great season. The biggest frustration for me was the clogging up of the midfield. Like you said, when a team that presses high, that keeps a high line, and wants to press, is able to contain you in such a small space of such a big pitch, by the way, you become too easy to defend. So the obvious answer there is to try and move the ball into wider areas, or just start playing big balls forward and try and go over the top. Villa didn't do either of those two things in the first 15 minutes of the second half. They seemed to, kind of like the Liverpool game, be intent on moving the ball with short passes through the midfield. And it worked about as well as it did in the Liverpool game, against a different tactical setup, but still, the idea isn't that different, really, in terms of how they want to press. It's just an execution of the line, of where the defensive line is set. So I was frustrated by that, but at the same time, like, we have to accept that Bournemouth is still a pretty good team. They're not we're not talking about some trash team that's going to get relegated at the end of the season. They have a lot of very good players. They have a coach that you and I both like. So I don't think that we can just dismiss that and say that Villa should dominate this team for 90 minutes, because that's an extremely difficult ask. So
no, that's fair.
You credit Bournemouth for the adjustment more than discredit Villa for their inability to break through it for the first 15, 20 minutes.
And you know what? It almost pays dividends for them. They get that penalty, and if Emi doesn't save that, I was about to say if he doesn't miss that, but honestly, that was a good penalty. Down low to the corner. That is a saved penalty.
Yep.
If he doesn't save that, we might be talking about a completely different game where Bournemouth is able to claw back into it and kind of uses that to buoy their spirits. But Chris, talk to me about the penalty. Was that a penalty for you?
I don't think it was, and I would like to say that I'm rational enough that I'd be saying the same thing the other way.
You're not.
But I think it's a tough one. Because, I think that it boils down to what you consider a natural position for Morgan Rogers' hand, or any defender's hand in that position. Because if you're watching on YouTube right now, he's coming down from a jump, so his hands are kind of up at his chin or cheeks, or ears, But so, it's a natural way. That's how humans jump, you can't jump like this, straight up and down without moving your arms very well. So that'd be the only reason that I could say maybe not. But we've seen it called that way before. We've also seen it not called that way before. So there's a little bit of inconsistency in terms of the refereeing of it. I think that if it were for me, it's not a penalty. He's too close, because they're what? Maybe 4 or 5 yards apart.
I was going to say 4 or 5 feet.
Was it that close to 2 yards?
I mean, he was marking him, and so Evan Nielsen kind of gets two hands in his back, backs up. heads it. So
Yeah.
I mean, what is the length of the forearm of a
Plus whatever
6
the
man,
momentum.
3 feet? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Plus whatever
I
the
think
momentum
more
that
between
carried him
3
away.
to 5 feet probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one for me. And I thought that it was a little bit harsh, but it did give Emi Martinez an opportunity to make a spectacular save. And we made the joke last year, I think, after one of his penalty saves, that he's the best penalty keeper in the world, and I think that's still the case. He just seems to have a real knack for being able to psych his opponents out. Not in this case; he just made a great save and make big saves in big situations.
Yeah, and shout out Amadou Onana, by the way, for blocking the rebound and
Yeah,
getting that out as well, because otherwise
hustle
Bournemouth are the
really.
first one to do that and probably chip that back in. I probably lean towards it being a penalty, but I'm good with either one being called. I think it is one where the call on the field has to stand. And I always kind of use that if it happens against us, what is Jeff Webb texting in the group chat pretty much? And I see Jeff Webb absolutely screaming for that for us in the group chat and talking about some sort of referee bias against us. So that's why I say it probably should count. But
Shout out Jeff Webb.
yeah, shout out Jeff Webb. Love you. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I think you miss a penalty after all that pressure, and Bournemouth's heads sunk after
Yeah,
that. You don't want to call a team mentally weak, but like they did not recover from that, did not use it to press on. And so Villa take control and ice the game.
yep.
Just 3 minutes later, Amadou Onana has the little fake pullback go forward. Rodgers almost has a wonder goal that just goes wide of the right post. 75th minute was that Ali opportunity to shoot where he doesn't, but lucky for us, goes out for a corner and immediately Ross Barkley heads it in.
I mean, that was a really nice ball in on the corner from Luka Dean, and
Oh
then
yeah.
just an excellent flick from Ross Barkley. So you're pleased with that. I think one of the things that I would say about this game on the whole, not just from an Aston Villa or Bournemouth perspective, it was a really pleasurable game to watch. Like there were big chances on both sides, penalty or not, in like that's included. But even if you take that out, Bournemouth had plenty of chances to get a goal. Villa obviously created quite a few chances. So it was just a really fun game to watch. And it's been a long time, I think, since we've been able to say that with any kind of consistency regarding Aston Villa.
This is typically a really fun fixture, actually. Even if you go back to last year, like the last minute Evan Nielsen equalizer, right, early on in the season. So yeah, these are two teams that like to play. Daniel Malen gets a deflected goal, misses a couple other opportunities to score. One's blocked, one he puts wide when Barkley slips him in.
Yep.
One thing that I do want to talk about, because we already talked about Malen versus Ali. Great to see Yuri Tielemans get some minutes again. By the way, I to your point earlier, I think he's going to be huge as we move into this next set of fixtures. But Ross Barkley is quietly getting a lot of high leverage minutes from Unai Emery in actually more of the 10 role as opposed to kind of the double pivot that he played last year. But coming on even for some of our defensive midfielders. He came on for Amadou Onana today. You took out some of that defensive solidity to bring in Ross Barkley. I don't think you or I really thought that he was going to have much of a role to play this year, but he didn't make the European roster at first.
Right.
And yet Unai Emery seems to really trust him in some
there
minutes.
must be something in training. And, I think I'm a big fan of post Villa the first time around Ross Barkley. Like Luton Town, Ross Barkley was a player that I loved to watch when he played for Luton because I had seen their come up and all that. So I was glad to see him back when he came back to Villa. But I like you just didn't think there was a place for him, and Emery seems to be finding opportunities to put Barkley in.
And by the way, he's been good.
And good.
He's been really good.
Yeah.
He's dribbling. He's showing energy. I think he's got 3 goals on the season or something like that.
He looks to be in great shape too. I mean, like,
yeah, it seems like every game he's slipping someone in. Pause. Slipping someone with the through ball for an opportunity, whether it's Ollie Watkins, this time it was Danielle Mullen. He is really contributing, and to your point about his fitness, he's pressing hard. He's really able to run with the ball and carry it much more than I thought he would be able to at this point in his career. So, there's been a lot of consternation about Unai Emery not necessarily making players better, at least the ones that he's purchased,
I was
right?
gonna say the ones he's bought specifically. Yeah.
Well, under the radar, Ross Barkley is a purchase of his that he has made a hell of a lot better. So, let's give him credit for that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, anything else on the game, or you want to talk good points, bad points?
Just really happy to see it. That's all.
Okay. All. So good points, great week, 2 confidence boosting wins. And, we were coming out of our winless first 5. We were very nervous about this run of fixtures. And not only have we made it through, I think you could argue we have really thrived on our way through it and continued to get better week in, week out, Liverpool aside. And so now we're coming into a much more manageable run of fixtures. And it'll be interesting to see, were Villa playing up to their competition, or were they legitimately getting better where this is just going to continue into a positive run for them?
I hope it's the latter. But I think if I can be a little bit of a Debbie Downer on the good points part, like, it just makes me a little frustrated with the slow start, because we pick up this many points in a really tough run of fixtures. And to be honest, you and I crushed Unai Emery for his tactical setup against Liverpool and his plan against Liverpool, where they flat out told you they can't defend long and they can't defend in the air, and we just chose to do neither of those things. So even if you take that game out of it, this looks now like a big lost opportunity in the early going of the season to pick up a lot of points and actually potentially have yourself a cushion, where you're comfortably in the Champions League spaces, in the table. So for that, I'm a little frustrated. But if I'm looking more on the positive side, yeah, it's been a great week. The win in Europe, the win against Bournemouth, where you played very well. You've played very, very good football for a good long stretch now. Fortress Villa Park is very much back. I think the statistic I saw was the last time that they lost was something like August of 2020. I'm sorry, January of 2024. Sorry, January 2025. Sorry, yeah, January 25. They've lost 1 game at home in the league since January 25. So, like, that's great. I think there's just a lot of positivity now, and you almost don't want this international break to take place, because you want to be able to continue to build on what's taking place here.
Yeah, so Villa got 3 points through their first 5 matches, Chris. 3 draws. There was the loss to Brentford, which is looking better. Draw to Sunderland is certainly better than we thought at the time. But you turn 2 of those draws into wins, Ezri Konsa doesn't get a red card against Newcastle, for example. All of a sudden, Villa are on 22 points and joint second with Man City, third, because our goal difference, as per usual, would be horribly inferior.
But I mean, and you didn't score any goals, like, for forever, for 3 games, right? You didn't score a goal.
So that is a good shout out by you. And so because we are so high and we are the lukewarmest of lukewarm podcasts, we need to end on a couple bad points. To me, great as the game was, we still looked very narrow and predictable. And I think managers that aren't as dogmatic as Iraola or apparently Unai Emery, for that matter, I do still worry about our ability to break them down, our lack of ability to play with it. It still feels like something that should be easy to game plan against. Ollie continuing to not score. And, Chris, I guess if we think bigger, I sent you Ryan O'Hanlon's latest article predicting the end of the Premier League table. And so he's got this expected goals metric that is a combination of actual expected goals plus like actual goals and a few other like really advanced metrics that he uses. And I like the way he kind of talks about the game. He placed Villa predicted to finish 12th. And his write-up for it was essentially Villa are at risk of essentially becoming Manchester United, a horribly expensive squad whose performances slightly outpace some truly atrocious underlying metrics that say that they should be a lot worse than they are. And until Bournemouth, I mean, you and I have talked about that week in, week out, right? Look at all our chance creation metrics, our goals, our expected goals metric was second to the bottom. Like every advanced metric that we had basically put us in the bottom 3. And yet we were sitting there at 11th at the time, maybe 6th when this article came out. So one game is good. One game does not undo 10 games of data that we already had. So I still want to see a little bit of more of a run of this before I'm kind of willing to write us in as top 4 contenders just yet.
Sure. I think the bigger thing that I would like to focus on being more positive coming off a game like this is that
Chris, we're in bad points. We did good points already.
I know, but like, so like just to counter what Mr. O'Hanlon says, and I hope he's wrong, by the way, because I don't want to finish 12th. If you look at the season on the whole, it's been we've talked about it. It's been steady incremental progress through the year, and I don't want it to be that way. I would rather just start fast and stay good and be around the top 4 all season long. That would be the dream for me. But if we're looking at it, like this team is playing much better football than they were in August, and that while frustrating is not something that I don't think anybody's going to debate. So I understand the frustration. Like I said, my biggest frustration was that we didn't take more points in the early going of the season, and we've left points on the table now, and I don't want those to come back and haunt us. So I understand the underlying metrics, but I also understand that we are, as Aston Villa, are slowly, ever so slowly, getting better, even against those metrics. They look better. The eye test looks better. The team looks like they're more confident. But the biggest thing to me, and we kind of glazed over it because we talked about it so much in the middle of this podcast, if we don't start getting goals from Ollie Watkins, forget it. That's the biggest, most important piece to me. If Watkins gets going, the team really is going to start to click, I think.
Yeah, and listen, there are. I just want to point out a couple expected goals versus expected goals against to kind of reinforce what Mr. O'Hanlon says. And again, Ryan O'Hanlon, it's a more complicated formula that he uses for these predictions than just this. But our 0-0 draw versus Everton, 0.4 to Villa, 2.0 to Everton. 0-0 draw Newcastle United, 0.2 to Villa, 1.4 to Newcastle United. Again, Villa were down to 10 men, so whatever. Let's move down the list. Fulham was a 3-1 win. That was a 1.1 to 1.1 expected goals. Our 2-0 win versus Feyenoord, 0.6 to Villa, 1.5 to Feyenoord. Manchester City win, 0.8 to Villa, 1.2 to City. 2-1 Tottenham win, 0.3 to Villa to 0.9 to Tottenham. And then jump ahead to Bournemouth on the weekend. 4-0 win. You want to take a guess on what the expected goals spread?
Oh, I think I saw something like it. Bournemouth were, I think, over a full goal higher expected than Villa.
So FB Ref has it at 1.7 Villa, 1.6 Bournemouth.
Oh, basically. Okay. I saw it. I saw it from, I think, XG Philosophy, where it was like 1.4 Aston Villa to like 2.3 Bournemouth.
That feels like that's giving Bournemouth a lot of credit. I mean, maybe the PK plays.
The PK is 0.7, right?
For sure. Yeah, that should be 0.7 alone. Point is, those are a lot of good results for Villa, a lot of points on the board where theoretically they have been outplayed, outshot, all that kind of stuff. So those are the metrics that I am a firm believer that at some point there's always a regression to the mean. So either the regression needs to be that Villa starts playing more offensively, better attacking, more creative, or the results are going to come back down. One of those two things need to happen. Hopefully it's the former, not the latter.
Yeah. I mean, again, if I can paint the positive side of it, defensive structure looks pretty good. And less so in the Bournemouth game. They gave up a lot of chances. Emmy had to make a handful of saves, and there was a lot of blocking. But I will credit the defensive structure for that 15-minute period where it felt like there were 100 blocks. I don't know if it was actually 100, but it felt like it. Because that's important too. That's a big part of what I think was missing last season for Aston Villa. Was that defensive organization that we've grown accustomed to under Unai Emery. And it seems like that is back, in particular with this line of Cash, Konsa, Pau, and Luka Dean. Those four seem to be moving like we saw a couple of years back in unison, not playing as much of an offside trap as they used to, but still moving very well as a unit defensively.
Agreed. So, Chris, larger implication on the season. We are up to 6th after Liverpool lose yet again. Villa are the only ones who
right now. That is actually the game that I'm most frustrated about this season, just because it didn't make sense.
And we got yet another YouTube shout out for Big Walt. Chris, anything else that you want to add to this podcast before we get out of here?
No, I think just, I really wish the international break wasn't happening right now, because it seems like,
I would be able to go to the game.
You're right. Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking about. Yes. But also just, I'm glad though that we're going into the break on a positive, overall a very positive run. I'd prefer that to, losing 3 out of 4 or something like that. So great result. Hopefully long may it continue going as we come out of the break here around Thanksgiving time for those of us here in America.
Yep. Can't wait to get back for it. Chris, we'll figure out some sort of recording thing between my travels and our time difference. But until then, my friends, I'd say enjoy the international break, but obviously you just said we will not. So all we will say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.